Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Joanne Sasvari. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So awesome to have you here. I've said this only a few times on the show, that social media has been so good to me, not so much in regards to like growing my brand and growing this podcast, but so good to me in introducing myself to people like you. So giving you guys all a peek under the tent a few weeks ago, I was bold enough to reach out to Joanne on Twitter and ask her if she would be so kind to donate her time to me in this podcast. And eventually she said yes, which is amazing. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And I think that's probably a great segue to get into this conversation, and I'm so excited that you're here. I have so many questions for you, but the first one is social media and food landscape. You've been in this industry for quite some time and reporting on food and tourism and entertainment for a while. I'm assuming social media looks a lot different now than it did when you first started doing what you do. So how can you articulate the changes, and what have you seen really impact social media has had on either what you do or the industry as a whole?
Well, I hate to age myself, but when I started, there was no social media. Social media was the letter to the editor, because I've been working for newspapers for quite a long time, working for myself for quite a long time, writing for magazines, writing books, editing magazines and newspaper sections as well. Mm-hmm. So social media has really changed things a lot. Obviously, it has, in some ways, decimated the legacy media landscape. In other ways, it has completely enhanced it because it's created this conversation. So, I mean, now you and I can meet just through like a simple tweet, and that's great. What I'm really enjoying with it is this incredible community of other food writers that I'm discovering all over Twitter, and well, I'm not on Instagram as much as I should be, but okay. it's really kind of great, because I would, like, years ago never have had conversations with the with the food writer for the New Yorker, but now I can send messages back and forth, and that's kind of really exciting. I think it's made the world in a lot of ways a much smaller, more intimate place. I think trends go super fast, which is not always so great. And as we all know, things can go viral that are not necessarily true, or not necessarily good. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, I think it has created kind of a really exciting community.
In regards to trends, something I'm super focused on as a consultant in this space, I'm always trying to kind of figure out what's next, or figure out what trend is actually here to stay. What have you seen as of late in the last couple of years that you think is either it's a 15-minute of fame kind of thing, or this one's here to last, it's here to stay?
Well, I think the really big, overwhelming trend right now is obviously plant-based dining. The Canada Food Guide, the new one, just came out yesterday, and it's like half fruit and veg, and the rest of it's all like, lentils and grains and things. And I think that's great, because a lot of cultures eat that way anyway, and I think that's a healthier way to eat, both for ourselves and for the planet, and it's delicious. And I mean, we grew up with like really terrible vegetables. I mean, like canned asparagus and
canned beans,
canned mushrooms. Like, who would do that? That's just disgusting. And now you have so much more availability. I mean, I know that not everyone does. I mean, I know that people in the north have, for instance, have a lot more limited access to things like that, but still, it's so much better than just the drink tons of milk and eat lots of cow. And, I don't think that's really good for anybody. So that's a huge trend.
Any that you've seen kind of come and go that you thought, I thought that was going to stick around a little bit longer? Or are you like, no, I knew that was not going to be a thing?
I don't know. It's kind of really hard to say, because sometimes you think that trend's over and you're like, what? Kale salad is still in? Who knew, like the cauliflower thing kind of was in, and then it was out, and then it's in, then it's classic. So it's kind of really hard to say. I mean, I think a lot of the stunt food is those flash in the pan things, like unicorn cappuccino things.
And like donuts that have cupcakes inside of them.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the rainbow bagel, that's such a big hit.
Rainbow bagel,
like why? Pardon me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think it's that kind of thing. And I'm really looking forward to the day that we all stop putting like whole roast chickens and, sliders on top of our Caesars.
Yeah, I'm not a drinker, but I've always been challenged by that. Why do people do that? Like, it's interesting. The Caesar with like the Big Mac on it and all those things. Just make a good Caesar.
I know. I think it's, well, actually, here's going back to your earlier question about social media. This is the whole Instagram thing,
100%.
Right?
Yes.
And I have to admit, personally, I don't understand why anybody would take pictures of their food if they didn't have to. Like, wouldn't you rather sit and eat it and talk to the person rather than standing there, with your camera and doing the whole thing? But I just see like so many restaurants like just putting stuff on the menu just because it looks good in a picture, and I'm a bit done.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I think it's a great question to dive deeper in, or a good topic I should say, is because so many chefs that I meet on this show and that I know through the community locally and abroad, they really do have to consider that. And this industry has always been give them what they want. If you want to be a successful restaurant, you really do have to listen to your people. In my opinion, feel free to interject. But now chefs are having to curate menus and plates that maybe look better than they taste, or maybe look better than they're meant to look, and they're pairing things that maybe shouldn't be paired together. But I wonder if there's some growth there as well, opportunities as well, as I'm sure there've been some opportunities for learning, but I still am challenged like you are, like just make a really good plate. It doesn't need to just be photographable.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, you taste first with your eyes.
Yep.
So things should look
aesthetically
delicious.
pleasing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that when you have to put like multicolored sprinkles, that was actually harder to say than I thought, on something to sell it. I mean, that's not food. That's what I call stunt food, stuff that's just there to like, get like clicks and, impressions and stuff like that. And I'm a little tired of that personally.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but as you were speaking to your point and describing it, I'm just thinking about those accounts, those social media accounts, those businesses that really, that's kind of their business model, is just that.
Yeah.
And they're packed. And they're packed all the time. They're packed with a certain demographic of people. Probably not the kind, if you and I owned a restaurant, that we necessarily would want coming in. You and I want people coming back every Friday night or every Wednesday. That's how we build our business. But people coming in to take a photo of like a milkshake and then never coming back, I don't think that's really a long-term solution to this industry and having it be an abundant space.
No. It's funny because I've been having this sort of ongoing conversation with myself and others about how there's this sort of a fundamental, I'm not sure if it's a divide exactly, but there's like two sort of competing things that are kind of happening. One is the whole idea of hospitality, of putting delicious food on the table and having people gathered around it and having conversation and enjoying that. And then sort of complementary but conflicting at the same time, there's the whole need to make money. Mm-hmm. You need to get, people in those seats. You need to get them buying your fancy, expensive booze behind the bar because you're not getting any discount from, Gov and I think that sometimes they work together and sometimes they're not. Sometimes hospitality and making money are not completely working together.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to get all negative.
But no. This is the reality. I think these are conversations. Like you and I said before we turned the microphones on, this platform has been an interesting platform for me to host conversation. And it's not always the sexiest and it's not always the most fun, but it's conversation I think needs to be had. For example, today we just released a podcast with a lady by the name of Erin Fairbanks out of New York. And she is one of the women that are the head of the Women in Hospitality United. And they're really helping provide a platform for women to have conversations about kind of like the Me Too movement, right, that's specific to our industry, which I think is great. And again, not a conversation that I was super comfortable personally me having because I felt uneducated, really, to be honest. But I feel like a lot of times the negative stuff is stuff that we need to discuss.
Yeah.
And discussing it in the idea of where are we going? What are we doing as an industry? And that kind of thing. Like, are we really doubling down on this whole Instagrammable plate? Is that what we're doing? Or are we challenging that and doing something different, going back to the hospitality?
Well, and a sort of a part of that whole thing is talking to a restaurant manager in Victoria, because they've got their dine around thing starting this weekend, and it's going to be amazing. So we're having all these little pre-tastes, as you get to do when you're in the media. It's awesome.
Amazing.
Anyway, and he was saying that they now have to have 2-hour limits on all their meals because people spend so much time taking pictures of their food and not eating it.
Are you serious?
Totally.
Oh, wow.
And I keep hearing this from person after, restaurateur after restaurateur. And it's kind of like, I want to go and have a 3-hour meal because I want to order everything and have a long conversation. I don't want to sit there and like take half an hour taking a picture of it. But now I can't have my 3-hour meal because someone's putting their plate on the floor and taking photos of it. And it's like, dude, this is really not fair. Just eat it. And I don't know if you saw the piece in Eater about how, I think it was Eater, anyway, but how everybody's got like the smooth wipe off surfaces that are really loud. And part of the reason for that is like
it looks better?
Well, no, it's because it's convenient, easy to keep clean, but also because it's louder, people move out faster.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah. So that again is like, yeah, it looks better. It's easier to keep clean. It keeps customers moving through, but where's the hospitality in that?
Yeah, you know what? I think you and I could probably have a very long conversation about just that. I'm actually, you know what? I'll just get into it. It comes up on the show a lot. I'm challenged right now locally here because it does look different in different cities, but I think we are getting away from just that hospitality. And when you're talking about creating a space with an architect and they are bringing in surfaces that are louder, that aren't going to be as enjoyable, that to me is a big issue, and it's not what in my opinion, what food is about and what community is about. But I'm also sensitive to the fact because I have quite a few friends that are in this industry, and the restaurant is their livelihood. And some of them are now going and adopting the quick service model. And what you're finding in quick service model, again, please feel free to interject here, is obviously a much quicker service as the name would dictate. But also bigger margins, like larger margins in an industry where margins are slim at best. I've had friends report to me changes from 5%, which they would have seen in their traditional brick and mortar restaurant, up to about 13% in their QSR. And they're just saying, like, why would I not open up another QSR? Why would I open up another brick and mortar? But my challenge with that, if I can quickly, is when I go to those spaces, I experience very little hospitality, if at all. And my interaction with a brand or with a business, it lasts for about 90 seconds, and then that's it. So if you and I were to go right now into a traditional QSR and we would have lunch, we would get in a line, we would place our order, we would take a number, we would sit down, and then it's up to you and I to create that experience. Whereas if you and I were to go to a traditional brick and mortar, they kind of dance that dance for us. Do you know what I mean?
I totally do. And I absolutely get why restaurants are moving in that direction. If nothing else, the lack of staffing.
Major issue.
Huge issue in Vancouver. And I really feel for the independents. I mean, getting staff when they're competing with all the big chain restaurants that can offer benefits that a small guy probably can't quite so easily. I mean, I totally get why it is a huge issue, and I really feel for them, but it's kind of like somewhere in between. You know, it's kind of that, okay, I really feel for you. I really want you to make a living because I love the thing that you make. But on the other hand, I want to sit here for 3 hours and have a really great dinner. Come on.
Yeah. Help me out.
Help me out. You know? Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting time that we're in Vancouver, especially because I think people eat out a lot because, everybody lives in tiny places. People don't cook as much at home. I hardly know anybody who has dinner parties anymore, and anybody who wants to go to a dinner party. So, restaurants have become our living rooms and our dining rooms and our kitchens and everything. So, you don't have people who are really willing to spend a lot of money, which is part of the problem.
A major issue.
And yeah, so I think it's challenging on every level for sure.
Are you familiar much with the industry in Australia? Restaurants and hotels and coffee shops. I have never visited, and I'm only going off of like reports of others that have been there. But what they've seemingly done there is they've educated the public and changed their palates to understand that when they go to a restaurant, that dish that used to be $45 is now $80, and that discrepancy in price is allowing for them to, one, have a business that they can keep the doors open and lights on. 2, pay their staff probably a little bit better, maybe give them benefits. So I wonder if what your thoughts are on, can we do that here? Can we slowly educate the public and help them understand like what it actually takes to produce a menu, what it actually takes to produce a plate? Like I talked to one chef locally who will not put spot prawns on his menu because he knows if he does that, he has to charge you and I a price that we are going to lose our minds over.
I think I might know who that chef is because I think we've had the same conversation. I really hope we can change that conversation. I think that in Australia, they don't really tip either. It's like it's built into the bill.
As far as I know, yeah.
And I really think that it is an insult to professionals who work in restaurants to have to rely on like essentially charity, like your tips, rather than a paycheck. I mean, I would love for that whole conversation to change. When I was writing Vancouver Eats, I tested all those recipes and I did all the shopping, and how any restaurant can put a meal on the table for what they do in Vancouver is a mystery to me. I mean, food is really expensive. Yeah. Good food is really expensive. We demand that everything is organic and it's local and it's ocean-wise and fresh it's sustainable and it's fresh. And that stuff is expensive. Do you know how much halibut is? Do you know a pound of crab meat? Holy mackerel, so to speak.
Holy crap.
Oh, holy crap. I mean, it is expensive. And I think that we've got to stop having this idea that food is cheap, because food's not cheap.
No.
Somebody is paying for it. And if it's not us, it's somebody along the way. The farmer's paying for it, or the distributors. Well, the distributor's probably not paying for it, but the chef is paying for it. Like somebody along the way
is eating that cost.
Mm-hmm. And if they're not, then it's not good food. Mm-hmm. And then we're paying the price in different ways. We're paying it for it in our health or with our environmental degradation. And I think those are really big issues. And I think that we've just got to suck it up and pay a little bit more money. I mean, like what we pay, I mean, I know people get so shocked. Oh my God, $30 for an entree, but that's nothing.
No.
Compared to what you're paying in San Francisco or New York or even Toronto, and we compare ourselves to those cities, and we should, because we have amazing food and amazing chefs and amazing ingredients that they're working with. And I think we just have to just bite the bullet and expect to pay a bit more.
Yeah. Well, hopefully podcasts like this and books like this beautiful book and conversations like we're having will help to kind of propel that dialogue forward. Because I really think we have to have it. Otherwise, with all due respect to the chains, if we're not careful, it's going to be a city of chains. And this book 10 years from now would look a lot different.
I know. And, I mean, not to denigrate what the chains are doing, because they're doing great stuff, but the chains aren't cheap.
No.
I mean, that's the thing that just kills me, is everyone's like, oh, it's so expensive to go to like some little independent. It's like, have you seen what they're charging, at Earl's and Cactus and those places? And they should, because the food is good and it's good ingredients. But yeah, I know. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Let's change our tune a little bit. We'll talk about something more fun and positive. Your beautiful book that you brought along today, which again looks so aesthetically pleasing, which we talked about earlier was so important when it comes to food. It has to look good first. Tell me how this came to be. Is this your first book?
No. So I also wrote the Wicked Inish cookbook that came out last year.
Yeah.
And I've done years and years ago, I did a book about my Hungarian background.
Oh,
and I traveled to Hungary and talked about that whole thing as an immigrant kid, how you're so embarrassed about your food and then kind of learning to love it and all that kind of thing. And then I did the Frommer's Guide to Vancouver and Victoria, so kind of a slightly different thing. So yeah.
So you've written quite a bit.
A bit, yeah.
How did this book though come to be a book? Was it something you had brewing in your mind for quite some time?
No. So Figure One, the publisher, has done a series of these. So they've done like Toronto Cooks. They've done ones for Montreal, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Calgary. Now they're moving into the States. They're just working on Houston, I think, and the Bay Area. And they're based here in Vancouver, but they'd never done a Vancouver book. Oh. So they'd been wanting to do it for a while, and then they started looking around for a writer, and a really good food writer friend of mine recommended me, and we just connected, and it worked great.
Amazing.
Yeah, I loved working with them. It was from beginning to end a totally positive experience, which I can tell you is not the usual case.
Yeah, I would assume.
No.
I'm always intrigued to ask creators, because I look at everyone in this space as a creator. Creators, the visceral reaction they have when. So I'll ask you the same question. So a lot of chefs I have on, I'll ask them, what is the visceral reaction you have when you see your plate dropped at a table and someone takes a first bite and they enjoy it? Like, what are you feeling when that person tries your food? So when you see your book, or you see someone engaging with your book, whether it's a photo online or someone tweets about it or writes an article on it, or you maybe are lucky enough to see someone pick it up off the shelf, what is the visceral reaction you're having? What emotions do you feel? Is it pride? Is it joy? Is it awe? What are you feeling?
Well, it's a little bit of all of that. I still can't believe how beautiful it is.
It is stunning.
Isn't it gorgeous? Like,
it really is.
Yeah, every time I look at it, I go, wow, that is so beautiful. I can take no credit for that part at all. And I'm really proud of it. I love this city and I love what the chefs are doing in this city. And to be able to put all that together in a book was an amazing experience, like really and truly. And you know that chefs can be challenging, but I mean, there's 45 of them in here, and there really wasn't any of that. Like everybody was just such a professional and such a delight to work with. Like no word of a lie.
That's good.
Yeah.
Because usually the stigma is the opposite, like you were saying. I used to deal with selling to these chefs in this city. That's how my first kind of foray into the one-on-one interaction with them. And it was not fun and they were not pleasant. But I feel now, I don't know if it's because there's microphones and earphones now, but now I feel like they're far more accessible. Everyone I've sat down with has been just that, very delightful. And I wonder if they have consciously or subconsciously changed how they carry themselves because they realize what's at stake and they realize the benefit of like, you know what, why don't I just be kind to Joanne and help her with this process, because it's only going to benefit me and the industry as a whole. Like, wonder if these are conversations that they're having with themselves, whereas 10 years ago they're like, you know what, I'm too busy, what do you need, here's a recipe, thanks so much.
I think that there have been a lot of changes. I think social media has been a big part of that for sure, because everybody is out there and the reaction when you are not a nice person comes back pretty fast. I think there's been a lot of conversation about how things are supposed to be in a kitchen, because, you know, back in the day it was all Marco Pierre White and people throwing pots and swearing and, you know, and I think that between the open kitchens and people are so mobile and, you know, movements like, you know, Me Too and Time's Up and stuff. I mean, I just don't think that people can be that person anymore. I mean, not every chef is like super media savvy or loves being in the limelight. I think most of them would rather be in the kitchen cooking. But I think that they've kind of realized that you can't just hide in the kitchen and be, you know, curmudgeonly anymore. So I don't know. I think it's kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing. It allows for, I think, this industry to be more accessible, which I think, again, lending itself to that conversation about educating the public and maybe helping them along with bridging the gap between spending $5, $8 more. If you can have chefs that band together and they're like, you know what, let's just like step out from the back and put a face to this. And to be honest, for the last, I'd say, 8, maybe 10 years, chefs have been like rock stars.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Yeah.
With
chefs and bartenders.
Yeah, chefs and bartenders. Yeah. I think farmers are next, personally, and I think that's very appropriate. But as I'm sure you're aware, you look at a lot of the progressive restaurants in the city, even some of the chain restaurants as well. On their menus, they're printing the farm or farmer that produced that product, and I think that is so appropriate, because if it wasn't for that farmer, him or her, that product wouldn't exist. So I really do feel like Netflix right now, Netflix is all about food and they're doubling down on food. And it's all about the chefs. But I think 3 years from now, 5 years from now, invest in those farmer stocks, because they're going to be the next rock stars. And I think it's appropriate.
Well, I hope so. And I'd really love to see the people who are doing really great stuff, like the really great farmers who are doing, you know, really cool fruit and veg, and they're like doing it in a very sustainable manner, getting a lot of love and being able to make money. Because it's really, I mean, as hard as it is to make money as a restaurateur, it's even worse as a farmer. And I mean, we're in a situation right now where people are producing too much food, but too much of it's not great food. Yeah. So that huge monoculture thing, I'm kind of hoping that will change a little bit too.
Yeah, I actually just met a few weeks ago. I'd love to introduce you to them if you don't already know them. Yvonne and Dean, they own the local farm in Ladner. It's new. It's a new business. It's and I'd love to give them a plug on the show anytime I can. So it's a biodynamic farm. The technology they're using is the same technology that almost everyone now is using to grow cannabis, to grow marijuana. Okay. But they've decided they're going to grow microgreens and beautiful lettuces and some of the most delicious greenery I've eaten. I'd say my whole life, and they can do it 12 months of the year because they have complete control of the environment. So I went out to visit their farm a few weeks ago with a friend of mine, Dan Larson, and I was completely blown away by the low impact they're having on the environment and this product that they're producing, which is just delicious. So I'd love to introduce you to people like that, because I think those are the people that really are helping to make farming more sustainable for us locally, but globally as well. And the product is just arguably irreplaceable. It's amazing. It's so delicious.
Well, I'd love to meet them. And, there are so many people out in the valley doing really cool stuff. There's I can't remember what they're called, the family that owns that little farm out in Chilliwack where they're growing yuzu.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if it's going to be viable, but they're trying and they're doing all sorts of really cool stuff. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's happening in that sort of agricultural zone. And I think the more of it, the better.
That leads me to the next, not the next question, but you mentioning that makes me think of a conversation I had with Rebecca McKenzie. Rebecca McKenzie runs the Terroir Symposium through the Ontario Culinary. I'm going to mess this up, Rebecca. I apologize. It doesn't matter, but Terroir Symposium in Ontario. And she was talking about the abundance that they have in Ontario and celebrating that through the things like Terroir Symposium. And I was thinking, we have arguably the same, if not more, abundance of products. Where do you feel like BC stacks up nationally as far as what we produce naturally, like what the terroir gives us?
Well, I think that we produce a lot of really great stuff. I think that we are not so good at having a big terroir symposium or festival that really celebrates that. And I wish we would, because I mean, just look at Victoria. Victoria alone is surrounded by three significant farming agricultural areas.
Right, yeah.
And Victoria, their food scene is a little bit different than Vancouver's. It's not quite as multicultural, but it's very much organically local. And the stuff that they have on the table comes from farms that they know personally. And it's truly farm to table because they have Souk and then Emmenchosen. And then they have the Cowichan and then they have the Saanich Peninsula.
Right.
And just there is just so much. And then you go up to the Comox Valley, and the Comox Valley is incredible. And then you've got the Okanagan in the interior and the Fraser Valley. Like, we have a lot. And I kind of feel like, I think we could beat those Ontarians if we got ourselves together.
Why do you think then? This is kind of a selfish question, but why do you think then that we don't have a terroir symposium?
I don't think we have the population base.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that Toronto's just such a big. I mean, Toronto's got a bigger population than BC, right?
Yeah. And
so I think that they have that huge concentration of people and huge concentration of businesses and restaurants and food distribution and all that. So I think that just because of that it kind of happens there. That said, I mean, you look at a place like Alberta where they have a very entrepreneurial sort of model for the whole attitude throughout the province. And I think that they kind of tend to do that sort of thing a little bit more dynamically, I guess I'm looking for, than we tend to do. So I think that we could totally do that. And I think we should.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been leaders with things like Ocean Wise and, Greenpeace, and all these different things have really kind of come out of this side of the country. So I think we really should be doing something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Can we go back to the book for just a second? And
yes,
can you? No, not at all. No. I'm just intrigued personally, to get your opinion on what are you most, I mean, I know it's very difficult to do this because you can't pick favorites, but from that book, what are you most quick to thumb to and show somebody of this book? Like what in there are you like, you have to look at this, or you need to try this recipe? Or
that's a tough one.
Is there one that comes to mind? Maybe not a favorite, but one that really sticks out?
Well, the one that everybody loves, and because it's easy and it's delicious and it's amazing, and every time you try it, you're like, oh my God, that's so good, is the Diablo cookies from Tacofino.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it's also a super easy recipe to make and just delicious. And they're huge. There's these huge, big, soft, spicy chocolate cookies. Everybody loves those. What else? Everything is so good in it. Right now, because it's a little bit chilly, there's a ton of braises and curries and things like that. And those are all quite accessible and delicious.
Yeah, it is definitely the appropriate time of year for that stuff.
Yeah, and then the other thing that kind of blows people away, although I don't think any of us could actually make it quite the way he does, is Thierry's the apple tart.
Oh,
have you seen that thing?
No,
oh my God, it's amazing. He does a sort of the puff is actually pretty easy because he does a quick or a rough puff pastry, but then he does this thing with sliced apples that kind of turns into this amazing mosaic of apple deliciousness. And you look at that and go, wow.
That's appropriate this time of year too. Apples are great this time of year.
It's true.
Maybe we should try that for the show. We'll put it online. Put it on social media.
Yeah, there we go.
We'll take a photo of it.
Yeah.
How did you take us back to when you first started at in this space? Why food? Why write about food? I mean, obviously biologically you need to eat food. We all do. But why did you decide that this was going to be the hill that you died on, food?
Um, I love how food expresses culture. Like if you think about it, you've got a plate, and on that plate is everything about a place that, what its people, where the people came from, the things that grow there, what the climate is like, the religious traditions, the political history, all of that kind of comes together. And it's a little bit more interesting than writing about, just politics, and
Right.
it's fun. And I think that there's something incredibly joyful about getting people around a table, like the conversations that you have, the community that you
100%.
create. I mean, I do a lot of, I edit The Alchemist, the little cocktail magazine, and Vitus, the wine magazine. So I write a lot about booze, which is kind of, it's all right.
Yeah.
And, the history and the stories and the personalities are awesome, right? And it's like, who doesn't love talking about that stuff?
How did you like go from, I guess not, how did you go from, what were you doing before this? Was it always food?
No. I actually started in news.
Okay.
Yeah.
So media's always been a thing though.
Yeah. Well, right. Yeah. Except for the early years, we won't talk about them.
Okay.
Yeah, those years of working in retail. Yes,
Ooh,
that was
fun.
a good time. I know.
Everyone's got to do it. Everyone's got to do it.
Although my first job was a Dairy Queen, so there you
go.
Oh,
yeah?
Seriously.
Oh, very cool.
I can make an amazing peanut butter parfait if you want.
My go-to Dairy Queen used to be, I haven't been in a while, sorry, Dairy Queen, was their strawberry sundae with the peanuts. That was my go-to.
Mm.
My mother loved the peanut butter parfait.
Yeah.
It's classic.
It's classic.
Not many DQs around nowadays. At least I see. There's a couple in Vancouver. There's that one in Kits, which is like, I think it's been around for quite some time. It's quite
still
nice.
There?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As far as I know, I don't get out there that much.
Yeah, the one on Denman's gone now.
Yeah. Oh, there's one here on Main Street. That's still there, the little tiny one. I don't know. We're talking about Dairy Queen, but so back in the day, Dairy Queen was a thing. So was that your first foray into this industry?
I guess it would have been. Yeah.
So you got bit with the bug. It was an ice cream bug back then.
Well, no, that mostly it was kind of like a good place to meet. I grew up in Nanaimo, and it was a good place because all the cute boys would come in. So it's like, hey.
The truth always comes out on this podcast.
Exactly. I went to journalism school, and I started working off in news as the assistant city editor in Medicine Hat, of all places.
Beautiful.
I know, right? and then went to Calgary, worked on their Sunday magazine. So I was kind of always jumping between sort of lifestyles and entertainment and then news, and kind of going back and forth for quite a long time. I'm usually working on the editing side of things, but I always loved the stories about food and the stories about drink. And so every time I got a chance to write something, I would. And then a few years ago, I decided to go out freelance. And between this and travel is kind of the stuff I just love. Yeah. I just love the people, right?
Yeah, it's so dynamic. I love this space. And you said something that I agree with to the marrow of my bones is about bringing people together in community. And I think there's no better way to evoke emotion and conversation than bringing someone into your home or to your business and feeding them a beautiful meal. I think that's just so special, and it's so intimate as well. Sharing food with someone is such an intimate and personal thing, and especially sharing something that you've created as well. That takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there. Like if I invited you to come over to our home for dinner and I cooked a meal for you, that's one, you're coming into my space, which is very personal, but then me cooking for you is also very personal as well. So I feel food is it's so powerful.
It totally is. And it's kind of a little intimidating. I know that for a lot of people, it's very intimidating to cook for someone else. And I always think that, if you've made the effort, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. Who cares if it's a little wonky or burned or, funny looking, because God knows that's been happening in my kitchen.
Do you find yourself ever wearing the hat of like a food critic? Do you ever play that role or no?
I have done, and I don't like it.
Okay.
I really don't. And, because I can never forget that somebody spent a lot of money and a lot of time getting that thing on the plate, and I can never forget that. So I could never just go, oh, that was terrible, even if it was terrible, because I always think, yeah, but he tried, and it's like, it's his livelihood or her livelihood, and I just don't want to hurt them. So I also find that taking it apart really destroys the joy of it. Like, oh, that wasn't quite good enough, or he didn't quite get that emulsion correctly, or whatever. It just, I don't know, it just kind of sucks the pleasure out of the experience.
Yeah, I get that. I get it, but I also feel like there's, how do I say this? I feel like we need to have standards as well in the industry, in any industry. And as a father to a 7-month-old daughter, when she is big enough to run a race, I'm not really too concerned with her getting a participation medal. If she wins, she gets a medal. If she doesn't win, then that's okay too. So I just wonder if at times we struggle as a society, maybe this is a Canadian thing. If I had you over and I'm like, Suzanne, what'd you think? And you're like, it was great, but I could tell it, like I burnt the crust or something. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, that would be like so Canadian.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine.
Yeah, I feel like is that something that's holding us back? Maybe as an industry nationally, like not being able to say, Brad, you burnt the crust.
Well, I think a little bit. I mean, there are no Michelin stars in Canada. We have no restaurants on the top 100, top 50 list, the big, huge international things.
It was brutal.
And, you know, and a lot of it's because I think our restaurants, for good reasons and not so good reasons, are really just trying to make customers happy with what customers want. And you're not going to hit those lists unless you're doing something pretty extraordinary. And I think that there really isn't a market for extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like not a ready market for it.
True.
mean, and you know, and Canada's got a small population. I always say we're a little country with a lot of land.
We are.
You know, and I mean, our population's smaller than California.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it totally is. And so, you know, how many people are going to, I mean, Atelier can do it, but there's not a lot of people who can be Atelier, you know, so, and of course they're in Ottawa, so they got a big, huge international thing going back and going through the city. So yeah, I do think that because we're not, I mean, could you imagine, I mean, having like some of the British reviewers and how vicious they are? Like you can never do that in Canada.
No, unfortunately. I don't know if it's unfortunate. Maybe it's for the best.
Maybe.
But talking about food scenes, before we turn the mics on, Joanne was kind enough to educate me. I made a statement, and I still kind of stand by it. And the statement was, I was talking about Copenhagen, how I feel like they've completely changed what food scene looks like there, and they are truly a food destination now, in my opinion. And I was saying to Joanne that I feel like Vancouver isn't. I said to her, no one's flying here for food. And she quickly rebutted and said, what about Richmond? And I thought, yeah, you're right. Richmond has I mean, New York Times, I believe, wrote about the Chinese food in Richmond being some of the best outside of China, which is incredible that they would write a piece like that. So obviously that's going to bring a lot of people to that space. So I wonder if we can just get into that some more. Maybe you can add more context to what you think is right or wrong about my statement. And we can just discuss that. So do you feel like Richmond is that way? You've worked with Richmond tourism, like you said, so you've kind of been there firsthand. You've experienced it.
Yeah. So what I think is really interesting about Richmond is that a lot of the chefs were top chefs in China, and then they came over to Canada. So they are, you know, I don't know if you call them celebrity chefs, but they are highly regarded chefs back home. But here they have this amazing wealth of ingredients to work with. Like they have that amazing seafood, you know, the spot prawns that they don't mind charging all the money for. All the Dungeness crab and the king crab in April and the gooey duck and all those amazing seafoods and the vegetables and that incredible bounty that I think is not quite so
abundant.
They call it clean food, and yeah, because it's so ethically, cleanly produced, I guess. Anyway, so they come over here, and so while I was writing for Tourism Richmond, I was finding that there were actually people who were coming from China just to go and have dinner, essentially.
Amazing.
I know, there's some incredible restaurants, incredible food. I think for a lot of us in Vancouver, it's a little intimidating.
I'll admit that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And, you know, you go in and you go, well, what am I supposed to order? So you end up ordering, you know, the same thing you always order. So you're not actually experiencing the food. And it is really hard because, you know, I mean, I've had that experience too, where I'll say, well, I want to have this. And they're like, no, you need to have the white person menu.
Are you
and
serious?
It's like, and I'm going like, no, I really want the thing, you know, and they're like, no, you will not like it. And it's like, trust me, I will love the tripe, you know, or whatever the case might be. And I think that's a little bit intimidating too. So like there is a cultural, divide, but oh my God, I think everybody should get out there and order all the weird stuff. All
Yeah.
the tripe and the tendons and the feet and all those things are so delicious and they're so well produced. And I know it's a little intimidating to do that, but you know what? Honestly, some of the best food in Richmond's in the shopping centers, like in the food courts, and you know, just go and eat it.
I feel like I need to ask you on a food date, and I need you to take me to some spots in Richmond because I am super intimidated, and I would go on my own or I would go with some friends because I know there'd be a lot of growth for me there doing that and being uncomfortable. But I feel like if you held my hand, it would also be a more enjoyable experience.
Well, I think it'd be super fun, and I haven't actually been in a little while, so you
Oh,
know,
cool.
we
We
could call,
should-
yeah,
yeah.
we should do that and go
Yeah.
into eat all the things and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never had tripe.
what?
Never had tripe,
Wow.
and I've never had feet. What else did you mention? I've never had gooey
Tendons.
duck. Tendons, I think I've
Ooh.
had. But yeah, I'm open to it. I'm an omnivore through and through. I appreciate the new food guide and all the plants, but if it's ethically raised and it's delicious, I'm gonna eat it.
I also kind of feel like if you're going to eat meat, you should eat all the meat.
Yeah.
You shouldn't
Oh,
just,
no, 100%.
Yeah, you shouldn't
Yeah.
just take the chops and then go, oh, that rest of the stuff is weird.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like some of it's delicious. You just have to know how to cook it.
Yeah, and I think that's been really, really interesting it's probably been happening the last 15 years or so, how chefs are really embracing that, like when talking about pig or like whole hog, whole hog menus where they're literally using like snout to tail. And I think
Wow.
it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one of my favorite recipes in here was from Wildebeest, and we made sweetbreads.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, beautiful.
I love sweetbreads, but they were kind of intimidating. I was kind of totally freaked out. They're actually super easy in the end. It's just that you have to rinse them for like 24 hours.
Right.
I know, which is kind of a little bit, okay, yeah, I'm not sure what
Unsustainable,
I'm
but-
doing. Yeah,
right.
yeah. But
Yeah.
it was great. It was this like, yeah, and I think that kind of stuff is delicious. Sorry, anyway. I
No,
interrupted you.
that's great. And brought it back to the book, which is fantastic. What was I going to ask you next? In regards to, I know it's difficult to do this, but if you could, for us, pick or at least highlight some of the chefs in the city, some of the restaurants in the city you think are really doing a fantastic job, that are flying the right flag, that are doing the right things, and that you're really impressed by.
Ooh, I hate to pick favorites
No,
because
I
there
know.
are actually quite a lot. I mean, I think that people like Michel Jacob at Le Crocodile, I mean, he is such a legend. And, you know, when we were doing the shoot, this was actually a really amazing experience. So we had a week booked off in the studio, and the chefs would sort of come in, they'd set up. And so while one guy was setting up, another one would be shooting, and another one would be packing up. So they were always crossing paths. And when Michelle was in the house, all the chefs were just in awe.
Oh, really?
Oh, totally. It was really actually super moving. And, you know, I mean, I think everybody is competitive because you have to be, but I think that there is an incredible collegiality among the chefs and real respect for the ones who are doing it right. Michelle definitely is on that list. People like what David Robertson's doing at Dirty Apron. I mean, I think that he is setting a real standard for making food accessible. And like the food he does in the school is,
Oh my God, it's amazing.
it's restaurant food, but he makes it accessible and his recipes are great. You know, Ned Bell, I think, does an amazing job at being a evangelist for, you know, for sustainable seafood and making food again really accessible to people. I love what they're doing at Pigeon. I think that food is just always great. Wildebeest and that whole crew. I mean, they have put such a huge investment of not just money, but just like personal investment into making it a great place for people to work. And again, with Brandon at Pigeon, I mean, these are, you know, independent restaurants, but people get benefits and they're treated really well. So, and the food is good. And the wine is amazing, and the cocktails are incredible. So it's like, wow, you guys are just winning on every level. You know, there are so many. Like that's just a small handful. I don't even want to pick anybody, but because
No, I appreciate
you guys were
that.
all great.
Yeah, you are all great. And if you are open for business today, you're doing something right, because it's a very challenging, very, very challenging time in the industry. Next, I wanted to ask you, and I just went blank on it, but I'm going to try and get it back here. Bear with me 1 second. Oh yeah. We talked about it a bit at the start of this interview, and you mentioned it kind of again with benefits that you mentioned that some independents are able to offer, but it's not very frequently that happens. So staffing is a major issue in this industry, and it's, I would say, plaguing the industry. Is there anything else? I know you mentioned like discrepancy between what food costs and what restaurants are able to sell it for. Is there anything else, or in your mind, are those like the big two hairy, audacious things we have to deal with right now in the industry?
I think obviously the cost of buildings, what do you call it? Real estate, leasing and rent, and all that is just, I mean, it affects everybody and everything here. I think the fact that it is, well, I should be all be positive, but here I'm not going to be positive because this actually makes me really bananas on a personal level. But I think that for restaurants, that's a huge issue as well, where you have, because we don't have always easy ways for people to get around, and when you've got people who can't afford to live in the city and they live out in, say, Surrey or even North Van, transit stops at 1 and people can't get home. So that is a huge issue. So, and taxis are too expensive if you can even find one. So not to go down that little road, but I do think that transportation is a huge issue as well. What was the other one? Oh, and then the other thing too is the fact that we don't have a wholesale price for liquor in BC. Mm-hmm. And, the margin, I mean, basically your restaurateur is essentially paying what you are when they buy a bottle of wine, and then when they serve it, they've got to have at least 100% markup. And, like, how can you make money? Like, honestly, as I was writing this, the whole time I kept thinking, how is anyone making money doing this? Yeah. This is so expensive and it's so hard. And that's just me in my kitchen. It's not me, employing other people and a decorator and, having someone curate the music and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's really hard. Yeah. And honestly, my respect for anybody who runs a restaurant is through the roof.
That's cool.
It really is. It's just such an incredible business. And yeah.
Have you grown to have more and more respect over the years that you've been working in this space?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more I know about it, the more I'm just in awe of the people, especially. There seems to be a bit of a movement too. I was just at a tasting for Donnelly Group last night, of all people, and they are kind of taking their whole kitchen and really teaching all of their cooks how to do fundamentals, like how to make a sofrito, what a sofrito is, all that sort of thing. And I think that sort of raising the bar of education for people at that sort of more pubby, chainy kind of level, I think that's going to make that better for everybody. And the fact that they're doing that is totally impressive, right?
Very impressive. I had no idea, and I'm very happy to hear that they're doing that. I think that's more of what we should be doing locally. Again, I think we can be doing a lot more in this space with what we have, both the talent in the people, the skill in the people, but then again, like we talked about, the abundant of amazing products that we have here that are being produced by some incredible farmers. The fact that Donnelly is investing time, effort, and money into educating their staff in a place where you maybe wouldn't even expect for a sofrito to be made fresh. Maybe it's all kind of traditionally coming from some frozen product.
If they even had something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, right?
Yeah. So that's great.
Yeah, it is really great. And the more I talk to people, the more I just like the levels of education, I mean, this city is crazy for like well-educated somms. Like everybody has their W set. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just a starting point now. Yeah, I know. And, our bartenders are amazing. I mean, we have some of the world's top, most award-winning bartenders in this city. And, it's incredible. Like we shouldn't
take it for granted as a general public. If in the industry or outside of the industry, you should be going out and you should be spending your dollars if you have them to support this space. Because like you said, yeah, we have literally world champion chefs and world champion bartenders that make up, and sommeliers that make up this space, where we are truly spoiled with choice.
Oh, totally.
And if you can't go to Richmond with Joanne for some gooey duck. The podcast is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, and I have for you, Joanne, the 2 questions that I ask every single guest. I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I know you can punch your way through it. The first one is the half a dozen have-tos. Stay with me here. I need from you 1 to half a dozen items, so 1 to 6 items of things you've experienced in your life that you feel like our listeners have to experience. It can be a book you've read, a trip you've taken. It can be food related or not. Just to give us a better idea of who Joanne Sasvari is, what are 1 to 6 of your have-tos?
Ooh. Okay, that's going to be challenging. The first thing that comes to mind is you have to go to Mexico City. I know everybody's totally scared of Mexico City, but you have to go to Mexico City and you have to eat everything in Mexico because it is the most amazing place ever. What else?
That one came to you pretty quick.
I know, it was just right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just there. I was there twice last year, and
okay.
yeah, and it was
Tripe?
just.
Do you have tripe?
I did not have tripe. Did I?
I don't know. For some reason, I would assume you go to Mexico, you're gonna have tripe. I don't know why.
Oh, I had chicharron, which is close, but it's skin. It's,
right.
But it kind of has that same texture when it's stewed. So, all the things that are coming to mind are all travel related.
That's okay. Go for it if you want to.
I think that you have got to.
I appreciate the thought you put into this. If you want to do one, people do one, and we move on. Okay.
Oh no, I'm just trying to pick them. So I think you have to go to London, and you have to go to the Savoy, and you have to sit at the bar, and you have to have a hanky panky. And if you still got him in the barrel, you've got to have the barrel aged hanky panky because it is an amazing experience. I mean, this is one of the iconic destinations for cocktails. Like this is where all the bright young things, you know, where cocktail culture in Europe really kind of came to be. And when they renovated the rest of the Savoy, they left the American bar alone. They just gave it a little bit of paint. So it truly is kind of an amazing thing. I think you have got to go to, I think you've got to go to Chateau Neuf de Pape, and I think you've got to drink as much red wine as you can because it is delicious and it's beautiful. I think you have to
write a book.
Maybe don't write a book. Unless you really want to. Yeah. I think you have to buy my book, though. I think that would be a really good idea.
And where, we'll get into that again, but let's plug it right now. Where can people get it? I'm assuming online and in stores?
Yes, you can definitely get it at Indigo and lots of the independent stores, and all the restaurants that are in here should have copies of it. And if they don't, then you can definitely get it at Indigo and all over the place.
So online and in stores.
Yes. And in fact, I'll be at Indigo when I don't know when this is going to be out there in the world, but I'm going to be at Indigo on the 31st from 6 to 8, I think.
Oh, cool.
On Robson, the new one on Robson, which is beautiful. Have you been in there?
No.
Oh my God. That's
Let's pump this out. We'll pump this out before the 31st. So if you guys listening to this and you aren't busy between 6 and 8, go down and get a signed copy.
Yes, come down. I'll sign it for you. Betty from Boku Bakery and Jefferson from Cacao are going to have some snacks there as well. So
I just had Jefferson on the show. We haven't aired it yet, but 2 weeks ago, and we had dinner there last week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Jefferson's great.
Yeah.
And he was just in Peru. And there's another thing that I think you have to do. I think everybody needs to get to Peru or South America in general. South America is amazing.
Yeah.
And Peru has the best food in the world.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's kind
throwing down the statement.
I totally am, but it's kind of like here where you've got that great sort of multicultural mix, but they've got the Andes and they've got the rainforest, and then they've got the South Pacific, and they've got this huge, amazing Japanese culture thing. The sushi in Lima is incredible.
I would have never have guessed that.
I know, right? Yeah, totally fantastic.
That's like someone saying that they have good sushi in Alberta,
but with
I know.
But Lima, at least it's on the ocean.
Exactly. Yeah, they say that. But yeah, I would never have assumed sushi in Lima or Peru. That's amazing. Any more have-tos?
Yes. If you have not done a proper wine tour in the Okanagan, what on earth are you waiting for? Go and
Savages,
totally. It's amazing. It's beautiful. The wine is great. Everybody's so hospitable. The food is incredible. The wine is great. Did I say the wine is great?
No.
Yeah. Maybe once or twice. Yeah.
I feel like we'd be remiss not to mention a couple wineries that you are a big fan of. Again, we don't want to leave anybody out, but if you had to make a list of not top to bottom, but just like a couple in your kind of pocket that you're like, I always like to go to.
A sort of a new discovery is the Chase up in Lake Country. Like Lake Country's kind of like, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in Lake Country.
Now, yeah.
Totally. They have a great chef. The food is amazing, and they're making really delicious things. Lots of Riesling. And their winemaker is amazing. He's just got the most incredible turn of phrase. He does a Gewürztraminer that he calls the Amy House Amy Winehouse of wine.
Oh,
It's
okay.
lush in all possible ways. Awesome.
Are you handling their marketing? Because I feel like you should.
No, I think he can do that on his own because
Yeah.
he is amazingly eloquent about wine. There is you probably can't get in, but if you can, the new Martin's Lane.
Okay.
So Martin's Lane is one of the Anthony von Mandel's amazing wineries, and it is just so incredibly beautiful. So when he built Mission Hill, he hired an architect named Tom Kundig, who is very, very famous in the States for his residential work. He's done exactly 2 wineries in his life. The first one was Mission Hill, the second one was Martin's Lane. And just from a design standpoint, it's absolutely stunning because it's on the hill just above Cedar Creek where the fire was in 2003, and it's still surrounded by sort of charred bits of wood. And when you look at it, he's designed it so the outside has like brown bits of iron with like little black strips meant to represent,
Cool.
And it's built into the hillside. It's absolutely freaking beautiful.
Yeah, it sounds like really sexy.
Yeah, like even if you can't get in,
just go stare at it.
Just go stare at it because it's great. And then you can go to Cedar Creek, which is right next door, and they've got a new restaurant opening this spring.
There you go.
I know,
Good segue.
I know, which is going to be super exciting. And then in Penticton, they have the first urban winery in the Okanagan, which is Time and Harry McWaters, and they've got some good food happening there, and like tons of different wines. And yeah, there's every time I go, like there's so much new that's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm sitting here. My jaw is dropped because you are literally like a Rolodex and a thesaurus of. I thought I knew a lot about food, and well, not so much about drinks. I don't drink, so I'd have to lean on you for that one. But wow, you kind of have been doing this for a while. You know who's who and what's what.
I just love it. Like honestly, like isn't this the best thing? All these amazing people.
It's the best.
Yeah,
it literally
totally.
is the best. We're super spoiled. This industry is amazing, internationally, but also here locally as well. We're truly blessed.
Totally.
Any other have-tos before we get to the next one?
I kind of lost track of how many, but I think that's
yeah, no, they were great. I think there were maybe 3 or 4, but they were all fantastic.
Great. And I do think that at some point in your life, you have to have like a real proper croissant. And I will tell you that most croissants in Vancouver are not.
I would have loved to have done this podcast with you about 6 weeks ago because I was challenged by, do you know Claire Livia? She's opened up Livia's on commercial.
No, I have not.
Claire has been a avid and a consistent Vancouver farmers market vendor for years, and she finally got the nerve and the financing to open up her own spot on Commercial Drive.
Oh, cool.
So she's doing fantastic breads and baked goods, and it's a beautiful room. And she challenged me to make croissants. I'm not a baker. I love to cook.
Oh my God, croissants.
So I took on croissants.
Oh my God.
My partner was laughing because I don't like recipes. I like to improv, and I find like cooking a dish you can improv.
Not
when
so
you're
much
baking,
with patisserie, no.
Oh my God. I needed, what did I need? I called for a measuring tape and a ruler. And I was like, well, am I doing a renovation or am I making a baked good? Anyway, what ended up happening was they were delicious. They were giant. They were far too big. So I got lazy when it came to cut them. And they were very dense. Like there was light parts to them, but they were like once you had one, you're like, okay, yeah, there was butter in that. Whereas I've had some before that haven't felt as daunting, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But where can you share? Where can we get a true croissant, if not locally, where globally?
Well, I think you're usually pretty good to go to Paris and get a croissant there. But locally, I would say Thomas Haas makes amazing croissants. Mm-hmm. Betty at Beaucoup makes amazing croissants. And strangely enough, if you head out to Abbotsford to Duft & Co.,
okay,
they do croissants. They're huge, but they're delicious. And they have that perfect thing where the outside sort of shatters, but the inside's nice and chewy the way it should be. Yeah. But they do one that's glazed with a London fog glaze, which I have to tell you is just ridiculous. It's so good. It's not really a proper croissant, but it's just so good that, just do it anyway.
Maybe you would have liked mine then, because mine was still like, it was nice and dense on the inside. And I guess it had
shattery on the outside?
It definitely shattered.
Oh.
It definitely shattered.
Yeah.
Lindsay, my partner, was like, I'm actually pretty impressed with these. So they aesthetically, they looked amazing. I put it on social media. Sorry. I took a photo.
Good for you. I would too.
But yeah, no, I'll have to go. I've been to Paris. I used to live in London, actually.
Lucky you.
And I've been to the Savoy, which is a beautiful space. But I don't recall when I was in Paris ever being truly wowed by a croissant. I hate to say that. And I'm going to find out a name for you. I forget what it is, but actually it was Claire that told me about it. And one of her, the next question I have for you is the haven't yets. And one of her haven't yets was have this person's croissant and they're in Australia.
Oh.
And apparently it's come up twice on my podcast. Jacob and Jenna that own Lone Wolf Bakery up in Sechelt, which is a great bakery as well. They also dropped this person's name as well. Apparently this is like globally now. This is where you go to get a croissant from this person in Australia.
Really?
I'll find out the name for you and I'll get it to you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, one of the funny things I found out last year is that there's kind of like this like complete amazing patisserie culture in Edmonton, of all places.
Edmonton, Alberta.
So it started with Dutch's Bakery, which opened in 2009, is incredible. But now there's all these other incredible bakeries and chocolatiers and places like that. And holy Hannah, I was just like walking around going, what?
Good job, Edmonton.
Good job, Edmonton. It's like, like come here for the pastry and never go home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of really amazing and really good. Like not just like it looked good, but it was like, yeah, that's proper.
Oh, I'll have to get a list from you because my grandmother, love you, Grandma. She's still with us, and we're gonna go visit her in February. So we'll have to get some pastry somewhere out there.
Oh, perfect. That sounds great.
Yeah. So the next question I have for you, I kind of ruined it there with surprise, is the same kind of idea. 1 to 6 items of your haven't yets. So kind of like a bucket list. Again, I have a feeling it will be, which is great. Food related doesn't have to be though. So 1 to 6 items, 1 to half a dozen items of Joanne Sasvari's haven't yet.
I'm horrified to say that I haven't yet been to Copenhagen or to Noma or whatever.
Right. Noma 2.0?
Noma 2.0. I haven't yet been to Berlin, and I am dying to go. Just to go and have fun.
Yeah.
I don't care if I eat anything. Like, pretzels and sausage, fine.
Yeah, exactly. And mustard.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are the chances? Well, I feel like you should have been invited to the MAD Symposium, in Copenhagen. So
yes,
Pierre.
You know what?
Renee Redzepi puts on the MAD Symposium.
Well, I haven't been to any of the big sort of food conferencey things. Like I've wanted to go to the Terroir, the Slow Food. I haven't been to Slow Food University, which I wish. Like I was like, what?
Yeah,
that just seems wrong, right? Or the MAD one.
Why don't you go to Terroir?
I don't know. I never get my act together, and then all of a sudden it's kind of over, and it's like, oh, I should have gone.
Oh, I'm going this year.
Are you?
We're going to be doing live podcasts from there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see if I can get myself together.
Yeah. No, Ned Bell's speaking. I'll be there. What
Cool.
other reasons do you need?
And it's May, right?
May 5th and 6th. Tickets are still on sale. You can grab tickets.
And it's one of the few times Toronto is really lovely.
Yeah, it's true. Toronto.
Sorry, I used to live in Toronto, so
I'm allowed to say Shots fired. No, I have family in Toronto, and Lindsay, my partner, is from Ontario. So yeah, we love you, Toronto. It's just not a lot.
I love Toronto. I just don't love the weather.
Yeah, no, I'm from Nova Scotia originally, and I talked to my mom today, and I do not miss the -20 and the -15 and the rain and the snow. So
no,
I'll take this. I'll take this little bit of gray today and predictable.
I know, and you can even see a little bit of sunshine on the edges there. So
yeah, it's beautiful. Sorry, Berlin, Copenhagen. Anything else?
Oh, there's so many things. The Terroir Symposium.
Sorry, Terroir Symposium. Yeah. What about if just for a moment, what about the Terroir Symposium intrigues you personally? Why would you go? Why would you attend?
I love the idea of being in a place with all those people talking about this stuff. And like really looking at what's happening in the world and sort of really diving into all the different issues. I think that's super exciting. I love that. I just love that when you get people together and ideas just start percolating and all that stuff is good.
The last question I have for you before I let you go, Joanne, is kind of on the same wavelength of that. Is I'm going to use his name just because I don't think he'll mind. When I sat down with Jefferson, he expressed some frustrations a bit with where we're at locally in Vancouver with our food scene and some issues with moving us forward and getting together on those platforms and having conversations and saying, like I said, when you first walked in, like, okay, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing it? Are we all just here for ourselves, or are we doing this as a collective? So if you could if you could speak to the collective or could represent the collective, what conversations do you think need to be had here locally between all these chefs in your book and the other chefs that are out there?
Ooh, that's a big question. So I think we have a great community of chefs. I feel like there's a lot of collegiality. I think that the competition mostly is very healthy, and I mean, it kind of raises people up. But I think that there are a lot of issues that everyone is dealing with that are, and I know where Jefferson's coming from, because there really isn't that appetite for risk. And you're not going to do anything brilliant ever if you don't take a risk. But when your margins are so small, your rent is so high, you've only got 2 staff and one of them's going to call in sick on Saturday, you've got no wiggle room there, then are you going to do something really adventurous? You're probably not. And I think that we really, as a community of cooks and diners both, like, really have to start having some conversations about, I mean, when we're talking, like, we like to talk about sustainability a lot in BC, in Vancouver, but one of the things that we don't really ever seem to remember is sustainability doesn't just mean that it's good for the environment and you can recycle it later, but it means that people have to sustainably be able to live, to put food on their own tables. And I think that we really need to start having those conversations a little bit more, and, and not expect to go out for dinner every day, maybe, but to actually go out and spend proper money for things that are worth it.
Yeah. Said. Well said.
And I think that the more people communicate and get those stories out there, the better.
Yeah, it's been great about this podcast, is telling stories like that and kind of bridging that gap and starting some of that dialogue, which is so important for this industry and for the health of this industry. I quickly want to say thank you so much for coming on to this show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I feel like we've recorded 1 hour and 5 minutes. I feel like we could have recorded maybe 5 hours and 1 minute. I'm truly intrigued by how you think and the information you have in your brain. It's so cool, the names you know and the places you've been and what you've seen and what I'm sure you're going to experience. So thank you for unknowingly inspiring me, and I'm sure many, many listeners today. Thank you for producing such a beautiful book that represents our city and highlights the men and women that spend many, many, many hours producing delicious food for us all to consume. So if you guys can, please do go and grab Joanne's book. It is called Vancouver Eats. You can get it on Indigo online or in store. And then if you are in town on the 31st, downtown from 6 till 8,
head to Indigo on Robson Street.
Yes.
Beautiful new store, and I'll be there, and there'll be snacks.
I mean, come on.
I know, right?
What else do you need? There'll be snacks. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, that was super fun. I really enjoyed that. Cool. And I love talking about this stuff. I love this whole world that we all get to eat and play in. And super fun talking about it. Great meeting you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much for your time again. I truly appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in as you do week after week. This show would not exist without you all. I appreciate and love you all. Thank you so much. Until next time, guys, you know what to do. Be good and do good. That's it. We did it.
Great.
Congratulations. Podcast done.